Welcome back to Hannity. As the VA scandal continued to unravel, President Obama made sure to take time out of his busy schedule yesterday for a summit on concussions in youth sports. Apparently, tackling violence in football is at the top of his priority list. Take a listen.
We've got to have every parent and coach and teacher recognize the signs of concussions, and we need more athletes to understand how important it is to do what we can to prevent injuries and to admit them when they do happen. So, right, we have to change a culture that says you suck it up. Identifying a concussion and being able to self-diagnose that this is something that I need to take care of doesn't make you weak. It means you're strong.
Joining me now with reaction is legendary Notre Dame football coach Holtz. Coach, thank you for being here. So the suck it up culture, he's talking about it on a day when veterans are dying. There's a huge scandal going on at the VA. Do you think this is any of his business?
Well, let me get this straight. We have our economy contracted 1% last quarter. We have 50 million people on food stamps, have less people working we had the last 70 years. We have a Marine in Mexico because he made a wrong turn. He's in prison. We have the wife of a U.S. citizen in Sudan who's been sentenced to die because she's a Christian, refuses to adopt the Koran. And then we have the VA scandal. As an officer in the Army, and he said 7 years ago, this is the problem, we got to get it done. You talk about leadership. What's he doing about concussions? Here's what you done. He's had one meeting with the Secretary of Veterans Administration in the last 2 years prior to today. One meeting. He's had one cabinet meeting in 6 months. As a leader, you sit down with the Secretary of the VA and you say, you know what I promised, you know the problem, what are you doing to solve it, how do we get it done, what can I do to help? You call the cabinet, how do we get the guy out of Mexico? Just tell me what I can do to help. I don't believe that's his obligation. Now, no doubt, concussions are a problem, but you can eliminate that by taking the face mask off the helmet. But
is it, Coach, the president's responsibility to stick his nose in the business of football? And it seems to me, Coach, that he has a problem with football, because you remember this infamous quote that he made earlier this year. He said, I would not let my son play pro football. These guys, they know what they're buying into. It's no longer a secret. It's sort of the feeling I have about smokers, you know? Why doesn't he like football?
Okay, he has the right to say that, but the football has been my life. I've seen thousands of people's lives change because they played football. They become productive citizens, good fathers, good husbands, and good workers. The football is a great sport. I understand why he wouldn't like it, because number one, if you're going to play football, you have to be held accountable. You have to be responsible. You have an obligation to other people. You have to work hard. You have to sacrifice. Doesn't matter about race, doesn't matter about creed, about financial status. It's all about productivity and what you do. And let's look at a sport called rugby. It's tackle football, but they don't wear a helmet. Why aren't there all kind of concussions there? Because they don't use their head. Everybody uses their head. Years ago, when I first started playing, we didn't have concussions because you didn't use your head. You tackled, you wrapped your arms, etc. But I think football is a great sport. We have to do something about it, but I don't believe that's the president's obligation when he has so many other things that he's responsible for. He's not making suggestions anymore. He's making decisions. That's the difference when you're the head of an organization. When I was the head football coach, I would have to call in a staff member. What's the problem? What do we have to do? How do we get it done? And you do it all the time. They know you're on top of it, and you're on top. Then you'll say, oh, gee, I heard about it on the news.
Coach Holtz, you, I'm sure, learned a lot of lessons on the football field. I think there's probably a lot of valuable lessons for playing a team sport like football. I do agree with you. Concussions are an issue. You mentioned the way of tackling is a problem. Who do you think should address this issue? Is it the NFL? Is it the Players Union? And you mentioned before the tackling issue. What else can we do to fix this, aside from having the president hold summits?
I think it's the obligation of everybody, including the coaches, including the NCAA, including the NFL, and including the players as well. As I never had a heat problem with a player, I told him, hey, that's your obligation about your safety. Don't use your head. You can get hurt, injured. And I don't give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on anybody unless you're a girl over 21, under 29. So don't expect me to come to your aid. You're responsible for your health, and don't use your helmet, because if you do, you aren't going to play for me.
Do you think the players want the president to get involved? How do you think the players feel about this?
Oh, I think everybody likes to see the president involved. He's a great speaker. He's a great father. He's a great man, I'm sure. But when we talk about your obligation, take care of the things that you were hired to do, why you were elected to do, and the things you promised that you would get done. You promised in '09, I am going to get to the bottom of it, and you don't meet with your secretary for 2 years? Who in the world are we kidding? How in the world can you get to the bottom of something? That's why Harry Truman said the buck stops here. And the buck stops there because the president, you have people that answer to you, and you're responsible for it.
You know, he could have canceled the summit. He could have gone to a VA hospital instead. There's no pressing reason why he should have sat down with Michael Strahan and Kelly Ripa to talk about football. Football could have waited, in my opinion. Any final thoughts, Coach? I mean, I just think you just hit the nail on the head that the veterans have to come first. There's so many other issues besides football.
I agree with you completely along that line. As I say, I'm a citizen. I'm proud of this country. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. My dad went to 3rd grade, born in the Depression, no food stamps, no stuff. But I was born in this country. I was taught about responsibility and about your obligation to other people. Life's a matter of making choices. And when you have a staff, it's up to you to make sure they're being productive and you know what the problems are so you can get them solved.
Coach, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.